Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome to Works in Progress with Frank Friedella. I'm your host, Izzy Iskowitz, alongside my good friend Deanna Davoli today, joining me from not far away, honestly, just a couple hours north here in Florida. This is our technically second Floridian guest, third Floridian on the show because I'm in Florida too.
That's right.
Deanna,
we stick together.
We do. We stick together. That's because it's so moist.
That's right. The humidity creates a bond, whether you want it to or not.
It's like a super glue. It's crazy. Yeah. I wanted to let you know that I just dropped at least three viewers by saying the word moist. That's not a word people enjoy. So I'm aware of that. And I see you people. Thank you so much. So now backstory here. Deanna and I go way back. We've been friends for at least 15 years.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. But we're not that old.
We're not that old. We met when we were 4.
We're vampires.
You are. I'm showing my age more and more. We met at a Dragon Con, and I was doing something completely different. I was a writer at the time, and I had a publishing company, and I was doing superhero novels. And Deanna shows up at a Dragon Con, setting up her table one morning, all by her lonesome at a Dragon Con. And I was just like, hi, I'm Frank. Hi, do you have anybody to if you have to pee, what happens? Do you need, we'll be your pee people. We will be those people.
You were.
If you need a drink or a beverage or.
Saved my bladder.
Yeah,
I don't have any bladder issues, thank you to you and your posse that you had.
And a lifelong friendship was born. So Deanna and I go way, way back. And what I want to talk to you about first, because I have this unique perspective about not only your art, but your art career and your points of view about art over this 15-year span of time, right?
Yeah.
So when you started, I hear you talk not unaffectionately, but less affectionately about your earlier work than you do about your current work.
Yeah.
All right. So can we talk about that? I mean, because when you showed up, I mean, you didn't show up thinking my work sucks, right?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of weird. So my background actually was in art education. That's what I have a degree in, and art history. So I had very little studio training or anything. I had about, I think, 4 studio classes for my entire career, and then whatever high school art classes. But I grew up in the country, so obviously my resources in art was kind of limited there. And after teaching a few years, I did like the children, but I didn't like the politics of, the education system and everything. So I got out of it, and I didn't know what to do because I still wanted art in my life. And my husband is really the one who convinced me. He's like, just go out there and sell something at 1 or 2 shows and see what happens. And if it doesn't work, he goes, so you put in, a few $100s and that's it. He's like, you're not out anything. We're fine. Okay. So he really gave me the confidence to do it. I still didn't think my artwork was great. It was nowhere near what I had been envisioning in my mind. But I felt, I had seen some other people out there doing all kinds of art. I mean, let's face it, art goes from abstraction that I'm not saying I have anything against abstract art. I actually like abstract art very much, but there is a different skill level involved. You know what I mean? So it's like, well, if my stuff looks more elementary, which it really did, maybe that appeals to some people. And believe it or not, I still to this day will have a few customers of mine that say that they prefer my older artwork than the artwork I'm doing now. And I sit there and I'm like, why? Why do you like that? I want to burn it. Really? Okay. But I'm grateful for it though, because all artwork, no matter what it is, hits someone a certain way. And so whether it was that old school stuff of mine that I don't like, because I know I have progressed as an artist, skill-wise, maturity-wise, experience-wise, it shows to me, but maybe to them, what I was doing back then hit a note in them personally. And I really think that's what art is telling the story. And every story and every piece is different. So I don't have
So
to answer your question. I kind of skew off when I talk.
no, that's fine. We're here to talk. It's great. Take your time. So no, you said something that you said something about your work wasn't coming out the way you envisioned it in your head, right? And I think that any artist watching this is going, oh, sister, preach, preach, right? Testify.
Totally,
Right?
yeah.
Right, yeah, right? Da Vinci actually has a quote about this. He said, I never achieved what I set out to do as fully as it filled my mind. And I'm like, Da Vinci, right? If Da Vinci can't get it right, like what hope do the rest of us have?
Exactly. We're all doomed. We're all doomed.
Right?
Oh.
But like the thing that I really admire from the story that you just told, there's a couple of takeaways there, right? Having an amazing support network, right? Jeff, your husband, Jeff Davoli, deserves a statue erected in his honor for like supportive spouse of the century, right?
I know.
The guy's a rock star. I love him.
I know. He's a good guy.
He's a really good guy. And, having him, like, be the one to say, show up, see what happens. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Just show up.
Exactly.
But then even you, when you were like, wow, this didn't come out the way that I thought it would, but I'm going to show up anyway.
Yeah.
Right? That's phenomenal.
Yeah. And I did have at that time, look, I don't think anybody as an artist should feel this way, because if you do, then you're never going to make any more art. But if you do show up, don't expect everyone to like it, because not everyone's going to like it, no matter how good it is, because it's maybe not their cup of tea, or it offended them, or it's just they like a different style, or whatever the case may be. And so I have always had that mentality, but that doesn't mean that when people would say things that were like disappointing, you like kind of like, oh God, should I be doing this anymore? What's wrong with me? Because, back then I would have a lot of people, not in a necessarily offensive way, but just say like, oh, my kid can do art like you and blah, blah, blah. And their kid's like, 12 years old. And you're like, oh God, I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but they're happy for their kid, and that's cool too. And maybe because I was, my skill has grown since then. Maybe because I was at that level, it inspired someone else. They're like, oh, well, she's doing this, so maybe I should try. And maybe it gave them the guts to do it. And if that's all that came out of it, it still was successful, just maybe not in a monetary way.
Right. So I love this concept that just by showing up, you can change the world, right? Even if your work isn't the best, even if you're not Da Vinci, right? Just by you showing up and being willing to be seen changes somebody else's life.
Yeah.
And thinking that maybe I can do this too, right? All of a sudden, like 5 years from now, that person is at a table killing it, right? Because like they realized it was possible for them, right?
Yeah.
And I love how interconnected we all are, especially within the art community. I think this is a fantastic thing. But there was something else that you mentioned that I want to circle back to, because this is something that I've been really hot on lately, and it's judgment. First of all, if you ask me, I'll tell you that I think judgment is like one of the most pernicious and deadly diseases on the planet, right? But we judge the shit out of everything, right? What's really interesting, though, is that if you are creating creative works, right? People seem to think that there's like this carte blanche automatically built into this. We're like, you have painted a picture and you have put it before me. It is now open to my judgment. And I'm like, no, it's open to your dollars. And if you don't want it, move the fuck on, buddy. Right? Like, it's at no point did I ask you to come by with an Olympic scorecard and hold it over your head and tell me how worthy it was of your attention. And it's just sitting there with a like a turtleneck and like elbow pads on your blazer. Like, dude, shut up. Like, nobody asked you, right? So,
if you don't like it, that's okay, but I didn't ask for your opinion on it either.
Right.
If you don't like it, just keep walking.
Just keep walking, right? But I think
walking.
that, and this is something that I think would be, knowing you as I do, I think that this is an evolution of your mindset over the years, right? Like,
Yeah.
originally, I think that most artists go into this, and I think you did too, go into this thinking, gee, I really hope people like this, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a willingness to receive that judgment because you want it to be positive,
Yes.
right? You're invested in that outcome. You have a point of view about, I would like this to go a certain way, like you're attached to the outcome,
Yes.
right? And I think that where artists need to start earlier, getting to earlier, is this place where, like, I've created this work. I'm satisfied with the work. If other people like it, I'll be pleased, right? But if not, the work is still worthy. I'm still worthy. There's like nobody adds or detracts from my worthiness as an artist or the worthiness of my piece,
Totally.
right?
Totally.
But I think it takes a lot of people a long time to get there, and that's why I want to have this conversation sooner.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm still struggling with that. One thing I have to say, so like if I had any mentor I could say artistically, and I'm not, my close friends like you and some of my other like close friends, I communicate with them almost daily and I'm like, what should I do about this? What do you think? And I just get feedback. But when it comes to a mentor, like for my artistic journey, I'd have to say Larry Elmore really, really helped me a lot. And I've always had this problem, and that's why I do this Broken Doll series of like never feeling good enough in multiple aspects of my life, not just artistically. And I always feel like disjointed, broken in many ways. And I can say that part of that is because I compare myself or my work, my art, this is artistically, to other artwork out there. And Larry told me, he goes, that is the worst thing you can do. He goes, don't you ever compare what you make to anyone else's. He's like, you can be inspired by, you can be encouraged by any of that. He's like, but do not compare your work to anyone else's. Don't compare. And I think he means also from a business point of view too. I mean, look, Larry Elmore's been in the business for over 40 years. He's amazing. He's legendary. He's been around making artwork when I was a kid looking at Dungeons and Dragons boxes in awe. Right. And so he deserves a recognition that if I want to get to is going to take me 40 years or more of really hard work. And
no, hang on, I'm going to stop you right there, right? No, because you're already already 20 years into the game, right? I know, and
I should be doing better than I am in 20 years.
Which is, again, you comparing.
I know. I told you it is one of my issues, and I admit it fully.
Yeah.
But I can give the advice. I have a hard time following. It's like, do what I do, not what I say.
So this goes back to judgment. This is all judgment, right?
All judgment.
When he says, don't compare yourself, comparing yourself is, am I better or worse than? That's a judgment.
Exactly.
Right? And that's all that is. And all judgment is toxic. All of it.
Totally.
Right? It will kill your creativity. It will kill your mindset. And ultimately, here's the tool I'm going to send you home with today, kids, in a little gift bag. A little thing you take with you, just for you. Here's how this works. Judgment and gratitude cannot occupy the same space at the same time.
Correct. I agree.
You're either being grateful for something or you're in judgment of it. You can't do both.
Yeah.
Right? So everywhere that you're judging your art for not being too good enough, everywhere that you're judging your business for not doing well enough, every time you're in judgment of this person's art is better than mine, you're not in gratitude for your own journey, right?
Yeah.
And you've forgotten, you've left on the table all of the gratitude that you should have for mentors like Larry Elmore, right? Mm-hmm. Like every time you go into that negative headspace, you're leaving all that other stuff behind. Yeah. And that's a dangerous thing that I want you to be. Look at me.
I'm looking at you.
Knock it off.
I know. It is. It's honestly something I work on, but I'm a stubborn person. I'm a stubborn Italian. And so I even though it will be, I have good days and bad days and, this and that. But I think overall, it's taken me even the last couple of years, it's been this growth for me. but it has not stopped me from making art. And that's where something new came out of it. So it was something bad, and I could have let it got the better of me, but because I'm a stubborn person, I'm a stubborn person. I was like, no, bitch, you're going to do this. And whatever happens, happens. And you can't worry about the outcome. You just need to let it be. Just do it. And then it's like, all right. And then I do it. And then I'm like, oh, thank God I did it. I got it off my chest. I feel so much better now.
All right. For those of you playing along at the home game with your mindset board and the dice and everything, I want you to notice that she said that she let go of the outcome. Like she let go of her attachment to the outcome, and that's what allowed the work to proceed, right? But if you've got this attachment to how it has to show up, then you're limiting your possibilities on how it can arrive in your life. So super, super important thing. There's so much to talk about now, because like I remember when you came back from Larry's for you like he does a thing where you go to someplace and hang out with Larry for like a week or something.
Yeah. It was I went 2 years in a row. It was 2009 and 2010. He doesn't do them anymore, unfortunately. He did a drawing class one. I didn't go to that. I went to the painting one in 2009, 2010. That's where I met like one of my best friends, Tammy Bryce, too. Mm-hmm. So not only did I get to learn from Larry, I also got a best friend out of it. So it was like a win-win.
That's awesome. But I remember very specifically because I was a fan of your art from day one, right? And like I bought your prints at DragonCon the first time we met. And I always thought your work was good. But then you came back from Larry's class and you were a different artist. Mm-hmm. Right? And I loved this. What I loved about it was that there are some people who go into a class like that only to prove what they already know. And then there are some people who go in and ask, what don't I know yet? Right? Like, what can I take away from this? How do I get better? And yes. That's what you did. And you came out of that thing, and like the next couple of pieces you delivered, I was like, who the hell is this? Where is this? Hey, look at this. Why'd you take a look at this? Hey. Right? So, no, it was amazing. It was amazing to watch you grow so rapidly, because like he turned a key somewhere, right? And like all of a sudden,
it was just seeing someone do it. I never really had full studio training. I mean, like, so in college, my studio classes that I did have, I had 2 painting classes and 2 drawing classes. And the painting class was basically like, this is how you stretch a canvas. This is how you prep a canvas. Here's a still life in the middle of the room. Here is how you mixed your medium, and pick a good composition. And they walk out of the room and you're like, wait, what the fuck am I doing? And then you're just like, all right. And you just go with it and you do it. And I still have like this really cool little still life I made once. Most of them are horrible, but one of them turned out really good. And it was more about learning how to use materials, not how to paint.
Interesting.
And Larry's class for me, and I'm not saying that all, art, again, I went for art education, so I had more education classes than I did fine art classes. But Larry, I learned more in Larry's class in 1 week than I did my entire college career when it comes to like painting and stuff. Right. The thing about Larry that worked with me, I'm a very like goofy, quirky, laughing, loud person. I like to eat. What? I like to drink. No. I know. So I'm very I'm not shy at all. Anybody who knows me, I'm not shy at all. I'm very comfortable in my skin, so to say. And Larry is very similar in that there was like no judgment. There's back to the judgment. No judgment. No, he's not pretentious. He's not on some high horse. He just wants to paint. And if you want to watch him paint, he's going to show you what he does. And that was it. It was like this light bulb went off watching him. It helped me so much. It's like, oh, to make skin color, you mixed that purple with that orange and you made okay, why didn't I think of that? Right. And it was just watching him use the tools to create what he created, not how to use the tools.
Right.
It was, how did you use those tools to make this finished piece? Or what paintbrush did you use to make the grass that way? I mean, it sounds so silly, but literally never seen that, you wouldn't know. And drawing, so I didn't go to any of his classes that did drawing or pencil work, but literally going to that class, I was told about one of those blending stumps and an electric eraser. I didn't know those things existed because they were never shown to me. Even though they were a tool that should have been, I was never shown those tools. I wasn't shown how to use them, but to me it was kind of logical. It's like, okay, it's an electric eraser and, oh, this is a blending stump. That helped my drawing, just using a tool I didn't know existed.
I know.
Literally.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in the country. My graduating high school class, I think, was like 120 people.
Oh my God.
So my art teachers were actually really great, though. They really were cool. But again, I'm sure the resources that were available to us were more limited. So some of it was just being educated. It's like, oh, I didn't even know that you could buy this stuff and that I could use it to draw.
All right, so now we've talked about how you were educated. I'd like to shift focus here on what you can teach right now. Because one of the things that I've seen you do better than anybody is create community, create fans, create long-term relationships with your consumers, right? Whether they're fans of your art or you call them consumers or but like, these are people who like, all right, so like, just full disclosure, before the Bay Area Renaissance Festival was shut down, I went and worked just 1 weekend, 2 weekends?
One weekend. It was canceled, man.
So I went and worked 1 weekend at this Renaissance Festival in a puffy shirt, hanging out with Dee and like helping her sell her stuff. And like, I've worked in retail since I was, I don't know, 13. Like, I've managed retail stores. I've managed chains of retail stores. I understand sales. And especially where, like, you've got somebody who's approaching a table and there are wares to be sold. And I get all of this. And most of that is, I think, standard. But then there are Deanna's customers. And when they show up, it's like a family member returns to the fold. And they're like, hi, and then there's like hugs, and then there's like, oh my God, I see this is new, and they're like flipping through your things, and you're like, oh my God, bitch, look at this one. Oh, I have to have it. Take that one. Yes, I'll have one of those because I don't have that one yet. And then like they're looking at their partner going like, she has like 6 new things. I only came to buy 3, but I mean, what am I going to do, right? And so like they buy 6 of these things, right? And this is like a level of customer loyalty.
Yeah.
That I hadn't seen, but like before in this world. And so, I mean, I'm not going to suggest that you were like engineered that or the architect of it, but I mean, do you know how that came to be and what you did to make it happen?
I mean, obviously sticking around for a long time had something to do with it. Again, because I'm stubborn, that's why I'm still here. But first of all, thank you for everything you said. It's very nice of you to say. I do appreciate that. Like I said, one of the things.
That's just reporting, by the way. There was no fluff at all. That was literally what happened.
I have some of the nicest customers you could ask for. Again, like you said, Loy, I mean, people have been buying art for me from my first show 14, 15 years ago, whatever the heck it is now. And they come every year. And if they miss a year, they send me a message apologizing. I'm like, you don't have to apologize. It's okay. We'll see each other again. It's all good. But there's a couple like pointers if like someone was asking me my advice, which does happen a lot at shows because I think I'm very approachable because I'm friendly and smiling and laughing all the time usually. That helps, I guess. I don't know, but that's just who I am. And you can't obviously force a shy person maybe to be that way. But even if you're a shy person, I would have a few recommendations. One is don't sit behind your booth and be unapproachable. So if your head's down, you don't make eye contact, and you don't say, hi, how are you doing today? I'm the artist. So if you have a question, let me know. If you can't do that, then you better pay someone that's really good at it or that knows you really well, like a spouse, a significant other, a sibling. If you can't be that voice.
A longtime friend.
A longtime friend. That's right. I know, but the two of us there, I think people thought we were going to have like a, what do they call it in Italy when they take the break and have a siesta?
Oh, a siesta, yeah.
Siesta in my booth. And it does happen that sometimes. Right. It really does. But, you know, I find there's like this fine balance when people come into my booth. Even if I don't know them, it's a new customer coming in. I always greet them. I let them know I made the art. Those are two very important things. I am not a pushy salesperson though, which I know some, and I don't mean pushy in a bad way, but like, I'm not very good at being like, oh, you know, I have this deal. If you buy 2 prints, you get 1 free and blah, blah, blah. If they're looking and they're debating, then I will pitch that to them. But I do find introducing yourself, give them some time. I mean, I know like when I walk in a store, I don't want all these people coming at me like, oh, do you know we have this sale? And oh, do you know we have that sale? And oh, and you can buy this too. But I don't want to know. Let me look. And then if I have a question, I'll come to you. Or if I've invested 5 minutes of my time and you want to, you know, suggest something or tell me something, then that's fine. So my suggestion would be to greet people, don't hide behind the table and be unapproachable. And if it's really hard for you, have someone that can do it, that like your biggest fan, your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, your spouse, someone that knows you and that could be your voice, because I think that's very important. And also, I mean, and this is another thing Larry once told me, which is, it was great advice. He's like, even if someone comes in your booth and they may not buy, but they're just chit-chatting and no one else is around, he goes, just have a conversation with them. He's like, you're better off having someone in your booth that you're talking to than nobody at all. Which for me is very easy to do because I don't shut up half the time. But it was really good advice, because there's always that thing too. If someone's in your booth looking at someone or something, someone else is walking by and they're like, oh, what are they looking at?
Right.
And it may be they're shy. So for them, it's easier to come in your booth because there's already somebody in there and they're not the only one.
I'd also like to talk about something else that you do that engages with you're not even trying to engage with an audience. Like, you're literally just an artist through and through. And like, there was a young lady who passed by the booth and you were like, I know that young lady. I painted that young lady. There's her portrait on the wall behind me. Last year at this fair, she was walking by and I said, hello, beautiful young lady. Come stand over here. Let me take a picture of you. And you snapped a picture with your phone and then did a picture of her. And she hadn't even seen it yet. But there she is walking by and you're like, oh, young lady. And like, your engagement with people is like next level epic.
Oh, thanks, Frank.
No, it's true, because like, you know, I was talking about this with Chris and Delphine on the first show, right? Where like so many artists will sit behind their table and keep their head down and just go through their commission list. And I just, sorry, you know, hi, how are you? The prints are $20 please. And like, there's no engagement. There's zero engagement. There's negative engagement.
Yeah.
Right? Like, the vibe is, I don't want to talk to you. Just buy my shit. Right? And you're like, young lady, come back. I have made art of you. Right?
No, it's funny. And I do actually normally email, and I emailed her, but she's just one of those people that didn't respond to my email. But I always send like a print to a model, you know, if I typically use models for reference. So that was definitely one of those that I was like, oh, thank God she's here. I can give her a print.
So here's the funny thing. You say I typically use models for reference. And like, when other artists hear that, we're like, oh, you get a model and they come into a studio, or like, you know, and you're like, no. People walking by, just me and a cell phone, people walking by, and I'm like, shh.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. But I mean, that's amazing that you're always like, oh, she would make a wonderful painting. Boom. And like, you make it happen. There's like none of this, should I ask? Would that be weird? You're like, lady, right? Like, immediately.
Yeah.
And I think that's so awesome. I think you're awesome, and you know that.
Well, thank you. You're awesome too.
Well, All right, I'll take that. All right, cool.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, sure.
We wouldn't be friends over 15 years if we both weren't awesome. Come on now.
Well,
no, I'm just
no,
kidding.
it's true. No, and it's, it's part of my job to get people to acknowledge that they're awesome. They may not be ultimately where they want to be, but that's just details, right? That's just making new choices.
And there's always a journey. I mean, in anything, especially with art, it's like I don't think I will ever stop learning and trying to improve or try something new or try a new medium, or to me, that's part of the journey. If you're totally like, this is perfect, everything I make is perfect, well then I don't see how you're going to grow.
Right.
As an artist. So
there's a guy, damn it. Is it James Young? I'm going to look up his name because I don't want to get this wrong.
Okay.
Is it here? Benny Lewis. So Benny Lewis is a Scott Young. I knew it. Okay. I thought it was James Young. It's Scott Young. So Scott Young is famous for rapid learning techniques. Okay. And in the time that I spent in the language industry, he was just coming up with this kind of publicity stunt that he did called A Year Without English.
I'm sorry, a year without what?
Without English.
Oh, a year without English. Okay.
He taught himself 4 languages in 1 year by literally, he left America, or left where, I don't know if he's American, but he left wherever he was and he went with a friend. And they were agreed that because like most countries have a 90-day tourist visa. So you don't need anything else except to arrive in the country and then leave within 90 days.
Okay.
So 90 days, it's 3 months times 4, it's a year. And so what he did was he dropped himself into a country that didn't speak English for 90 days, and he taught himself Spanish, Portuguese, Korean, and Chinese.
Hero!
Right?
That's amazing.
But the reason I'm bringing him up is that he also did this other thing where he was like, what else can I apply the way of thinking about learning? How can I apply this in other areas? And so with no art experience whatsoever, he decided he was going to draw a self-portrait every day for 30 days. And you look at his self-portrait on day 1, and you look at his self-portrait on day 30, and I'm like, that's better than I can do. I've been an artist for my entire life, and that guy's portrait like is smoking my ass, right? Like, but his point of view about learning is very different, right? I think that a lot of artists, because we're so open to judgment, right? We're like constantly being judged for the work. Yeah. We want to make sure that we're not getting bludgeoned by negative feedback all the time, right? And so I think that what a lot of artists do is they continue to do the thing that they're already good at.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's easy to do that.
Right, it's easy. And then, but this guy is like, okay, once I'm like even reasonably good at something, I'm going to stop doing that. I'm going to focus on this other thing that I really horribly suck at. Yeah. And then I'm going to fix that thing. And then there's this other thing I really suck at. And like, so I mean, like proportion, shading, relative, that's proportion, right? So I mean, like, but like he just attacked it. He attacked it methodically. He's like, here's my first effort not knowing anything.
Yeah.
Now, what don't I know? What did I get wrong here? Well, the eyes don't look right. The whole proportion of the face doesn't look right. Okay, so how can I fix that? Mm-hmm. And just systematically over the course of a month, just like, what the hell, right?
Wow.
But like, when you look at it like that, there's even a TED talk about this where some guy is like, we talk about this 10,000 hour rule to achieve mastery, right? Where like, people will say, you want to achieve mastery in somebody, you got to log 10,000 hours doing what you're doing. And this guy is like, how about no? How about mastery is an illusion, right? And that was a made up figure in the book they're quoting anyway. But what if I told you that if you literally spent 21 hours doing anything, you'd be pretty good. You wouldn't be great, but like, if you just like, yeah. And so this guy proceeded to like put that to the test. And he's like, because there's this like kind of like this hockey stick on a graph where like you start off knowing nothing, and then really like the first, that first learning phase when you're like getting all the first information, like you just like there's this really rapid rise, and then it just kind of levels off. And like, so like 20% of your effort gives you 80% of your progress. And then the other 20% or the other 80% is getting that 20% like climb. Like that's where the mastery happens. It's like,
that's where the mastery happens. Right. And a lot of people, it's very hard to get there. I think that's it's funny too that you're bringing this up, because I have actually two things to tell you. One is, I know with me, I love working in pencils, especially having a small child. She's 8.5 now, but still having a child at home and everything. And I have another job. I've been able to be a stay-at-home mom, have another job, and have my own art career. Right. And doing
You're amazing, work, by the way.
I'm stubborn. It's the stubbornness. Can I tell you, being stubborn has its benefits. But doing the pens, I loved working with oils. But I found having a small child in that it was hard for me to stop and go a lot. Mm-hmm. And so the pencils was an easier medium to pick up with. And I've always loved pencil work and working with charcoals. That's what I did in college, was just charcoals. And, but I still find though, I didn't realize, my husband Jeff pointed this out to me, that like, I've been told before that like my work doesn't always look cohesive because I work with so many different mediums. And I do agree with that. Looking at it to a whole, the subject matter all looks the same. It still looks like it's done by the same person, but because I'm not hitting that same note over and over again, it has a different effect. But he goes, what's cool about your work is the fact that you experiment with mediums, and your variety in challenging yourself to work with those mediums is what makes your work stand out to me. And I was like, that's kind of true. I didn't realize that, but he pointed out some I didn't even know existed. But I mean, I just picked up Copic markers one day. I'm like, let's see what happens with this. And I made the girl with the headphones with the candy cane, and that's one of my good sellers. Man.
I love it. Yeah.
You can't erase it or anything. I was just like, let's see what happens. And I did it. Oh, let me see what happens if I mix pencils and watercolor. What happens if I throw graphite powder on it? What happens? And I do experiment with media. And for me, that's my challenge right now, is to do that. But I have to tell you a story that we were talking about judgment.
But wait, I have to address this one point first.
Okay.
It's the willingness to fail, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right? Because like, it's not just a failure. Every time you do something like this, you fail I'm not going to say on purpose, but you fail with the intent to learn from the failure.
Yes. And it's not comfortable.
That's a game changer though. It's a game changer. Like, listen, people who are like, I'm going to try to draw a circle. I didn't draw that circle. I tried to draw a circle. I failed again. But unless you're like for me, like the analogy is always like that NFL team in the locker room watching the game tape the day after, going like, here's where we missed that ball. Here's where we could have come around here. We're going to train for this. We're going to do this better next time. Right? And like, if you're not being self-critical on that level, art is really hard to get better at, because if you're not being self-critical and not willing to take those failures as learning opportunities and get better from them, then you kind of stagnate and your work kind of looks the same year after year. Yeah.
And look, I'm not by any means, if someone works with the same medium all the time, saying that they're not good. I don't mean it like that at all. I'm just, my personal thing is like, I always use pencils. Those are like my base, because that's what I'm comfortable with. Mm-hmm. And I started to infuse, I'm going to try watercolor with this. Or what happens if I do the markers? Or what happens if I do, whatever, graphite powder, whatever. For me, that is definitely, and it's not comfortable at all. Half the time I'm like, this might screw up the whole picture. I got to find out what happens, so I'm just going to roll with it. Because I'm not good about, let me try this on a little piece of paper first. I just kind of go like head deep. I don't know. It's just what I do. I don't know if it's the right way or not. It's just
but I mean, like, when you start with pencil, this is the kind of thing where like, all right, I've already reached a comfort zone with this, right? I know I'm comfortable here, and I know that I've got a greater chance here of achieving the result that I see in my head than I do anywhere else.
Yeah.
Right. So let me start there.
Yeah.
And then let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's a really brave way to work. And I mean, it shows in your work. I think you're doing great stuff.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. So for those of you, go ahead. Tell me.
No, I just want to tell you one story because I thought about it before and I didn't want to interrupt, but this is such a good story that one of my college professors told me. It's such a great story. And he wasn't one of the fine art teachers, one of my art education teachers. I don't remember his name, unfortunately. It was such a great story, though, and I think you'll appreciate this. It's about judgment. He said that it's like this make-believe story. He says there's this artist that lives in a little village, and he paints this portrait in this beautiful, huge painting, and he's proud of it, and he brings it as far as he can bring it. But he decides to bring it to the center of the little town, and he puts out a red bucket of paint with a paintbrush, and he puts a sign there, and he says, please mark a red X wherever you see something wrong on the painting. So he leaves it there for the day. He comes back at night, and there's red X's all over the paint. So he brings it back to his studio, and he repaints everything. And he brings it back to the little village, and he leaves out his palette of paint, all of his paintbrushes, and he leaves a sign and says, if you see any problems that need to be corrected, please fix it. He came back that night, and it wasn't touched.
That's fantastic.
Is that not a beautiful story? I had to share that with you because I thought you would like it. But I remember that story vividly. Because everyone's sitting there listening to this professor, and I'm like, well, where's he going with this? And then afterwards, he tells you, and you're like, oh my God, that's mind-blowing. I love it on so many levels. It's just such a simple but beautiful story. And I hope you can use that or think about it. Anyone out there can think about it next time they make a painting.
That's phenomenal. Deanna Davoli, ladies and gentlemen. So, guys, thanks so much for joining us for Works in Progress with Frank Fradella and Deanna Davoli, who's just killing it out there. Deanna, I'm going to post a link to your sites so people can, you don't have to do that shill thing. People can find me at, and then you got to give them a URL, and nobody's sitting there like typing. That never happens. I'm sorry. Like, yes, you can find me at, like, it's going to be in the comments or it's going to be on another post. But please click through and support the arts, support our artists, and support my very good friend and throw some money at her. And you get wonderful art out of it. So there.
Yay.
All right. Yeah. Yay.
Thank you, Frank.
No, thank you, Deanna.
The best.
I love you.
You're the best. Miss you.
You guys are awesome. I miss you too. Talk soon, okay? When we're not on the show.
Good.
All right. You guys be good to yourselves. Be excellent to each other. We'll see you next time.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.